It's Matt Chapman, and I'm here with Byron Clayton. Byron's the global retail people and culture leader for IKEA in Sweden. Hi, Byron.
Hi, Matt.
Byron and I were just working out that we go back about 18 years from Singapore. And Byron, you've had an amazing international career. Can you just talk us through where you've lived and that journey to now?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I have had a really privileged opportunity to work in many different countries. I've actually been in 6 different countries and worked for 6 different companies. I started off with Nokia in Finland and had some time in Microsoft with Singapore, then did a little tour in Denmark with Maersk, the global transportation company, and then had the opportunity to be in the UK to work for AstraZeneca and for Mercer HR Consulting. And now I've come back to Scandinavia again, as you said, to work for IKEA and to be their global head of people and culture for retail, which is all of our stores around the world.
IKEA is a company I'm absolutely fascinated by. Can you tell us more about the culture?
So the vision of IKEA is to make a better everyday life for the many people. And when we talk about the many people, that's really everyone. And we have this incredibly strong connection to how do we make really people's lives better through home furnishings. And we do that through affordability and through access. And it's something that's really important to us. But at the same time, we have this vision around how do we make the world a better place? So when we talk about people, we say that we want to be people and planet positive. And that comes to how we do sustainability. That's around how we do equality. And that's how we try to treat all of our people. So we have an approach for a living wage everywhere in the world where we pay our people. We have equality on gender for pay everywhere in the world. And we also have full gender representation at all levels of management, boards, and executive levels in the company as well. So I think what's impressive is this didn't happen overnight. This is something the company's been doing for decades. And I think what sits within the IKEA culture is to always do the right thing. And it's not because they're doing the right thing because it leads to more money. They do the right thing because it's the right thing to do for society. It's the right thing to do for our people. And it's also how we want our customers to see us.
Can you tell us more about the living wage? I'm quite interested in that.
So we have a lot of hourly workers who obviously, if you've been to an IKEA store before, you've seen them. So we have amazing, passionate people who work for us, but we aren't always the person who pays the most. But what we have said in the retail landscape is that everybody has the right to live, and everybody has the right to earn enough to have a safe living. And so one of the approaches that we've had as an organization is to really take that step forward to understand in each market, what does that mean? So how much is a living wage if you are a full-time worker? And then how do we make sure that we do that? And how do we provide benefits that also support that? And that's not always an inexpensive proposition. But we think that what that leads us to is then we have super engaged coworkers. And even if you look at the average tenure of the people that are with us, I mean, it's very easy to find people, even as hourly workers, who've been with us for 15, 20 years. Because they love the work they do and they love the jobs that they have. So I think part of, from this family perspective of how we take care of people is we want to be able to look all of our coworkers in the eye and say, we're trying to do our best to help you.
That's very special. So talking about most recent times, I guess we've been through, what has this been like at IKEA and how have those values shone through?
I would say, first of all, it's been extremely intense. So I think we've taken a position from the beginning of how do we protect as many of our coworkers for as long as possible in terms of employability. And our approach has been to try not to have any redundancies anywhere in the organization if we can avoid it. And of course, that's hugely challenging. It would be very easy to just try to slash the organization. But then the amount of intense work around how do we do that? How do we look after our coworkers? What does that mean? How do we provide income protection for them? How do we support them in ways where maybe government support and our financial support doesn't get there because maybe they're a two family unit, and maybe their partner has lost their job, and all of a sudden they're sitting with very heavy bills that they didn't expect. So having to work through all of that and to keep this sort of ethos around how we protect our coworkers has been really interesting for us, and also not knowing how long the crisis is going to last. We went from being an almost pure, what we call offline player, meaning cash and carry stores was 90% of our business, to being almost a 100% online internet retailer in a period of 2 months. We had at one point over almost 80% of our stores were closed around the world, but we still had demand for people. And how did we do that? And how did we adjust and do that at the same time? So how we worked with our social partners, unions and works councils in their different countries to try to make sure that we could move our coworkers around to different jobs where we had demand to keep the employability going was a big challenge for us. I think the other thing that we had to constantly remind ourselves to do during this crisis, Matt, was what we talk about putting on our own oxygen mask first. So, when you fly on the airplane, they always tell you during the safety briefing, you need to put your mask on first before helping others. And a lot of times we would forget about that. And you could see people after the adrenaline sort of starts to run out after the first couple of weeks of the crisis, and patience starts to go thin. And then, the relationships get really, really tense. And that's where we had to really remind each other to take a step back. And how do we support each other to take those breaths, to take the time out, to get some reflection, to pause? I think that was one of the hardest things we had to do over the last couple of months. But as we started to learn that behavior, then, things have really started to even out. And I think people are very energized about the future.
And as you just go back to that point about as you start to read the behavior, tell us more about that. And I guess what I'm thinking about is just as we trend forward into the future now, how we capitalize from the times where we were all a bit out of control to we're getting some control to making that sustainable in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting. So during the crisis, when it first started, we had I would say quite a relaxation of internal rules, if you will. So there was this real togetherness. Everybody came together. We understood we had a mission to protect our coworkers and our customers, and this real pulling together to move with speed. So a lot of things, let's say, are sort of suspended. Then the organization got into this oh no moment where they felt like the train was getting a little bit away from them. And then we started to have the controls coming back in. And I think this is also the point when the behaviors of individuals who'd gone through the really intense time of the crisis started to run out of energy and needed to recharge. So we actually took it as first looking at the leadership team, but then across the entire organization. How did we start to roll out mindfulness activities? How did we help people to start to have more psychological safety? How did we help people with global wellness and well-being to help them to find themselves again and to really collectively let the entire organization take a couple of breaths? And of course, even how we saw that in the senior leadership area was getting people to start rotating on their work, to actually start to give people not 1 day, 2 days, but 3 days off, really carving time out, having people be more as backups to then allow the stress of the system to relax. So the rubber band was stretched really far, started to pull back, and then there was like, okay, but we still need to be somewhere here in the middle. So let's not lose that great work. And I think that's the mission that we're actually on now as we look into the future, as we experienced a lot of really amazing positive learnings as an organization. I mean, what a fantastic learning experience. Like, we have all been through this challenging crisis together. And we've learned so much, and we've actually come together so much more as a community. So even though we're physically distant, socially, we've never been more connected. So I think it's also how do we now leverage that as we go into the future. That's a really important part for us.
And thanks. That was Byron Clayton, global retail people and culture leader for IKEA in Sweden. Thanks, Byron.
Thanks, Matt.